Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave with my esteemed colleagues
Ted,
Ryan,
and today we want to talk to you guys about a recent 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons review that we saw online by actually someone we kind of admire and we enjoy watching. Noah Antwiler, A.K.A. Counter Monkey,
A.K.A. Spoony.
Spoony Experiment,
The man of many aliases.
did a review on the player's handbook
of 5th edition.
Well, Spoony, we're throwing down the gauntlet. Listen, people, if you're watching this review right now and you have a problem with the fact that we've played the game and we've read the book from cover to cover,
and that we like it,
and we enjoy it,
stop watching right now. Just go away right now, and don't even bother. Now, all that being said, we actually really enjoy Spoony's stuff, and a lot of times we usually agree with him.
Well, I mean, I don't need to enjoy somebody because he's like a good storyteller.
He's funny.
You don't have to agree with someone if they can still tell an entertaining story. Right. Like everything he says, no, I don't take it as gospel, but it's his perspective, and I like the way he delivers it.
Well,
by and large,
a lot of times I feel like with Spoony, I'm laughing with him. This time I felt like I was laughing at him,
or more cringing. Actually, I was just like, dude, really?
It was a little brutal. He spent way too much time talking about how bad his book smelled.
Right. Now
that's a funny little detail.
So with Dave, you tossing down the gauntlet. What I have to say to Spoony is, you haven't played the game, go check it out. You want a game with us? Go ahead and contact us. We'll get a Google Hangout going, because we like the game, and the fact that you're going to say you don't like it without having played it, it's kind of harsh.
Well, not only that, I watched all 2 hours of his reviews twice.
Right.
And here's the problem that I had with it. Although it was entertaining, I felt like he didn't actually read it. Like he skimmed the book or looked at someone's cliff notes that hates D&D 5th edition. And did his review off of that.
He said in his in his defense, he got the book, and 24 hours later he did his video.
Yeah.
And if we pull out the book here, we are talking about over 300 pages worth of material. And that's a lot to do in 24 hours.
Basically, why not wait a week to do the review?
Because
I guess you wanted to be content generation and timely.
Exactly.
But at that point, the book had already been out for a while. It's not like it was right on it anyway.
Waiting 72 hours might not have been a big thing.
So what we want to do is let's talk about what Spoony talked about. Let's address.
Well, first off, he went in saying the book stinks. It
had a bad odor to it.
He says this game smells, and he picked up his book, and he says there's an unpleasant odor to his book. Now, we got 2 players' handbooks here. Do either of them smell? Did anyone feel any issue?
Well, I didn't notice anything.
If his book, I don't care if his book has odor. That's all right. Your book has odor, and that's fine. It's a fact. I'm not going to refute the fact that somebody's book smells.
I'm not trying to say that his book doesn't. I'm trying to say ours didn't. So I
don't think it would affect the playability.
Well,
odor ability, yes. Playability, no.
Right. Yeah.
You can just keep the player's handbook.
You know what you do for a bookmark? You have one of his car fresheners.
Oh yeah.
Any
scent you want.
Little trees or something like that.
Could be like the naked lady or the tree or whatever.
The girl, something. Yeah, exactly. That's the way to go about that one.
So where do you guys want to start, man? There's a lot of ground to cover here.
I think the next thing he went into was the artwork. He hated the artwork in it. Now I know.
No. He said 60-40. He liked about 60% of it.
Okay,
he did about 40%.
Right.
So let's be fair.
Okay. Well, let's be fair about it. In some ways, I kind of agree with him. I'm not a super fan of the artwork here.
The small demi-humans are terrible. The gnomes and the halflings look.
I was only offended by the one halfling. To be honest with you, other than that,
I look at the cover. Hopefully, you guys all who are following us have seen this. It's not bad. You got a clear fire giant on there with a nice draconic skull helmet.
Dude, that is King Nar.
Okay.
King Nar. Who's King Nar?
He's a fire giant from the Fire Giants. It's a big series modules from.
All right. Well,
so bringing in that whole history thing.
Yeah.
okay. So you know who it is. It's a cool picture. You know, right off the bat, you look at the cover, and it's not turning me away. I like this picture.
Wait, isn't that the module like Against the Giants or something like that?
Yeah. It might even say it in here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
All right. So as he's researching, sorry.
So taking it, aside, you look at the, we don't like you and I don't like the demi-humans.
Well, the gnome and halfling specific.
I said Gnar. It's Snar, King Snar. But yeah, it's from Against the Giants, I believe, which harkens back all the way to AD&D. It was a whole series. Slave Lords was one of them. Temple of Elemental Evil was one of them. The Loft one was the other one. Oh my god, the Drowse on that was so freaking hot back. I remember back because I was a teenager at the time. Yeah. It was too much for me to handle.
Yeah. Making you the well-adjusted person you are today.
Yeah.
But anyway, so before interrupting,
some of the artwork, how would you describe it? What are you saying, the surrealist or whatever?
Yeah, it's kind of like that paint.
It's painterly. It's basically it's trying to have like the sort of
classic feel.
Renaissance, because like a lot of the second edition was semi-Renaissance. Like notwithstanding the cover and a few other images, a lot of it is softer edge painting.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, my personal taste,
Glowing Sword Magna.
I don't love it. And you look at. The barbarian picture. You like it because you think it's more Viking, it's more Nordic. I don't see, Ragnar the barbarian. I don't see the fantasy, warriors that I read about and that I play at the gaming table.
Well, there's different levels of fantasy. That's more like that barbarian is more like Fafhrod and the Grey Mouser.
Right.
So Franz Lieber's sort of like low magic, right, by and large.
And for me, thing. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit back and and say that it's junk. It's not like it's bad art. It's just
not Conan.
It's not what I want. Yeah. So that's my take on it. You said that you enjoy the artwork in the book, right?
I do. I mean, except for the one mongoloid half. No, there's two mongoloid halflings, which are actually absolutely ridiculous. And
the gnomes and the halflings are kind of.
The gnome doesn't bother me. It's a different take. It looks more like the fourth edition gnome. It's not your traditional AD&D gnome, and which the gnome has always had the problem of being
differentiating the halfling and the gnome to the dwarf, like those sort of like you want to set them aside. Yeah, but it's a very weird sort of place to preach. I don't know. I've always liked when they give the gnomes like the bit of like slightly oversized noses and ears, kind of like like maybe they're a little swept back. The ears are a little swept back and fey looking. And the noses maybe a little oversized. I don't know. That was because, and then you give the halfling closer to human proportions, just reduced. But the gnome you can kind of set them aside a little bit.
All right. Now one of the other things he brought up was the half-orc paladin.
Well, paladins in general. The comparison between the older edition.
Well, right. But I mean, we're on artwork here. What is your thoughts on this monstrosity, or the fact that we've got it broken away from your typical human paladin, which has been...
Like, here's the thing with that picture. It does not invoke my traditional idea of a paladin, but then again, this paladin isn't the traditional paladin. This paladin is the holy warrior, the champion of the gods.
Of any god. So they're not lawful good paladins anymore.
No, they can be lawful anything. We're not lawful at all.
You could be promoting chaos. Your chaos dwarf could exist in this edition as a paladin.
I mean, it does say that they fight against the encroaching darkness and hunt the forces of evil.
Well, if you're making that kind of paladin,
like you're jumping the gun there because you didn't go to the beginning of the chapter where they list. And this was a big thing with Spoony was he really had an issue with the descriptions of the classes, and because it's all flavor text in the beginning.
Right.
And then he pulled out the AD&D book. Well, look, right here.
It says blah, blah, blah. The problem being with that, like, this edition is meant to be a lot more sort of thematic, more storytelling, right? So they use language to sort of evoke a story.
Here's the thing. Chapter 3 classes, right? The very first page of classes.
It gives a one-sentence breakdown.
Yeah, barbarian, fierce warrior of primitive background who can enter a battle rage. Bard, an inspiring magician whose power echoes the music of creation. So let's skip down the paladin to one he was really
railing on.
Holy warrior bound to a sacred oath. There it is. One sentence.
Yeah.
Let's all go home.
Yeah.
All right. But, and so, that's a prime example of me of, like, he really didn't look at the book, like, because he totally missed that one page.
Yeah.
That was, he was, like, railing the most against.
Well, I mean, also, too, like, it seemed like he wanted things to be super spelled out, which this edition is not about. Like, he was talking about the fact that the second edition kind of, it alluded more to what, like, the Paladin's Code of Honor is, but it's going to be very specific to the individual character. And specific to the god that they're revering or whatever.
Well, so, it actually does. Like, there's they give an example of 3 different archetypes,
right?
Paths for paladin. Each one has their own tenets,
right?
And it is kind of spelled out. We jumped the gun a little bit though. We're going to classes and we skipped right over races. Yeah. Now, I kind of agree with Spoony on the fact that I don't like the descriptions of the races starting with the flavor text. I would like the more traditional, this is what they look like, this is kind of what they're about. And it just goes into like that story element, which I can agree with that.
So you would agree with him that the race examples or that the race descriptions don't really help the newbies out.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Big concern.
Yeah, I think it was good that it was in there. But, like, maybe that should have been the second paragraph it started in. One of his issues was using the iconic characters from out the different Watts properties, which I totally disagree with him. What's the difference if they don't know who Tanis Half-Elven is? But the point isn't to tell you who Tanis Half-Elven is or who he was. The point is he's a half-elf named Tanis.
Well, I mean, and they give you a little sense of what that individual character was. Like, aside from, like, characters from Lord of the Rings, like, what popular examples are you going to have of, say, a half-orc or whatever? Like, if you put that in there, like, you got nothing to really draw reference from on. If you're not talking about, like, Aragorn, Bilbo, Legolas, and Gimli, like, all the other, demi-humans have no precedent, that people are popularly going to know. Right. So why not dive into the trove of the 40-year history that this game has had and the characters, and also from a marketing standpoint, they're probably like looking to cross promote. Yeah, if you're interested in this character, we have these back catalogs of books.
Here's all these books.
That you can buy to make our company, stay in existence and be, successful. Because if you like a product, you want to make sure that company is around.
Yeah, you want to support it.
Yeah,
exactly. Hey, and not only that too, they're drawing from a lot of those stories back when the stories were actually good.
Yeah,
from lots. It's really gone downhill. But
because that's the one thing I will totally agree with Spoony about is like the fact when they friggin' like shoehorn when they go from 3rd to 4th and they have these stupid events that like basically they shoehorn their authors into like bringing the Tiefling in and the Dragonborn and like in a not very good way. Like it was just you're just like banging your head against the table. It's just like you way to ruin
Dragonborn show up in a meteor.
Let's just say everything. We'll pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, like
that was bullshit.
Way to ruin like everything that's been written in the past that was good. And now you can't bridge back the quality stuff
because it's the timetable.
Yeah, you just totally screwed up.
There's one good thing about this though.
Yeah.
They only fucked Forgotten Realms.
Yeah. Right.
Dragonlance is good. Dark Sun is good. Greyhawk is good.
Yeah.
They totally friggin' bent over Forgotten Realms and just made them take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine because for me it's fine because I don't really care that much about Forgotten Realms. Like, there's some novel series I enjoyed, but as a campaign setting, I
agree, but I can shed a tear for for the fans of Forgotten Realms out there.
Yeah. I'm not a big Forgotten Realms player, but I do read the Forgotten Realms novels. So I mean it's rough. Having to swallow what they made RA do. It's like, all right, we need to push the timetable 100 years.
He's the only one that I think I actually enjoy anymore though. Like, all the authors that I really loved that used to write in
Realms.
In the Realms, they're not writing there anymore. Like, The Time of Troubles, the Avatar series was really good. The Threat from the Sea, the Finder's Stone, the Pool of Radiance books, like all that stuff was kind of like the iconic stuff for me that I read.
There's a lot of good short story ones too.
Yeah,
anthologies are great because it's just like a nice little cross section of what was going on.
So that's not really there. So they screwed the Forgotten Realms. So what are you gonna do? 4th edition wasn't my favorite edition either. So
yeah. Well, speaking of 4th edition, Spoony actually says that it's a perfect game.
Perfect.
Well, that just quoting. 4th edition is perfect.
Well, no, for what it is. He said for what it is, and also it was good for new players. Like it was something that people could come into on equal footing. He said, he's like, let's not call it anything other than a miniature game because it's very miniature heavy. Like he said, it's very differentiated from any past edition. Which so I can agree with a lot of that stuff.
And in what he says, any game that has any kind of interaction is open to any kind of role playing.
Right.
And for those people who look at 4th edition and say you've removed the role playing, that's a player choice. That has nothing to do with the rules. Two people are playing a game, and it is their own interaction that defines the role playing amount.
Well, here's the thing though: the space in your game to have role playing versus combat, like if you're like getting together for 6 to 8 hours or whatever, that's a pretty lengthy point in time to invest in playing a game. The 4th edition combats being as long as they are, or were, just like that detracts from any sort of role-playing or story elements because you're spending more of that game space in the combat. So, I mean, I guess the story arcs would just get drug out as long as the story
it just takes you longer to
propel through the story.
Even though there's combat mechanics in the game, it doesn't actually mean you have to have mechanics. Look at our Fate game.
Yeah.
We played our first game of Fate, and there was combat planned, but we never attacked anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know, did you enjoy the game any less for not attacking?
Absolutely not. But anyway, I was just going to get back to the intent of the video to talk about that. Like, so, I find it funny that that Spoony's like pro 4th edition for what it was, and it's appeal to new players. But he also is like vitriolically like he's like hostile to people that want to play any semblance of a balanced game. But he also loves is pro 4th edition. Like 4th edition was very much let's balance this thing.
The epitome of balance. Balance the blandness.
The epitome of how balanced can I possibly make this within a scale of balance.
They really turned all right, let's limit the wizard, let's increase what the fighter can do. So you all had your at-wills, your utilities, your dailies, and whatever items or things you might have to be able to, have an assigned power. And it was just, boom, this is what you're locked into. I enjoyed playing the game. It definitely felt different than other editions. And, We've talked about how little we played 4th edition, but doing the research, I've got a plethora of characters, which means we played for a lot longer than what we said previously, and I enjoyed it. I would play it. It just happenstance that someone said, let's try this other game, and we went down a steamrolling in another direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing was though, it wasn't. I would play, Pathfinder over 4th edition. It just was not my favorite edition of the game. But the thing is, just to be as antagonistic towards people with balance concerns and wanted to play a more balanced game, but to raise up 4th edition in my eyes, that seems like it's contradictory. You can't yell at people for being whiners about wanting balance, but then raise up 4th edition as this superior game because that's balance. That's the terminus of balance. As a 4th edition,
it was very, very. His views on that kind of stuff was very bipolar.
Yeah, well, and older editions were balanced in a way. It was just 2nd edition. The balance was your martial characters were awesome in the early levels. And then the balance shifted that your casters took center stage, in
the higher levels.
Levels 5+, it's all of a sudden the wizard and mainly the wizard is the one that's going to be the standout.
I actually think, mid levels, 5 to 10, the wizard starts to take off, but it's not until, your serious double digits that there begins to be no comparison between your melee and your spellcaster classes.
Right, because you have all these spell effects going on all the time.
Your priest who casts harm. It's like, yep, that dude just dropped a D4 hit points.
Yeah.
I don't care how awesome you are. You got a D4 hit points. You're close to death.
You kind of suck,
especially in a game where 0 is death.
Yeah.
That dude hits you with a dagger. You're done.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Spoony kept bringing that up, and it's probably in the book, but. Dude, I remember playing the -10 forever. I don't ever remember not playing the -10. And I played from first edition on. And I just always remember -10. Maybe
a house rule could have been a house rule that caught on and eventually,
or or it's one of the options in the player's handbook or the D&D. I don't even know where it came from. I just know -10. That's all I remember.
That's what I remember. But I'm citing Spoony here that he's like, you hit 0, you're dead. Slam the book closed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gonna rail against the apparent lack of lethality again, 4th to 5th, 4th, I played maybe a half dozen characters. Not a single one I was ever worried that they were going to die. Never had a concern ever. Whereas fifth edition, our second
every session we fear death.
Well, yeah, it's been pretty close. I mean, if you like lethality, in your game, and I'm sure you can house roll to make it less so.
Well,
but the first combat of the second session of Ted's game, someone just died.
Someone died.
Within the first few rounds.
He had 2 rolls.
Yeah.
He rolled a 4 and then he rolled a 1.
Yeah.
That's three death saves.
I've played 3 games now.
Yeah.
I've been dropped in 3 games.
And when you make that first failed save, you dancing on eggshells because you drop a 1 Mark did, and you're done. You're out.
Well, no, the way we had three characters dropped in that combat, we were guaranteed almost guaranteed that
the odds were.
Let me ask you guys this, right?
Yeah.
We played all the different editions. We're in our 5th. When's the last time you were afraid of an orc?
Third edition orc could be terrible.
On crit, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the concept of that orc with the great axe and the 15 or 16 strength, doing that ×3 damage on a D12.
But you know what though? He's also saying in 3rd edition, right? But you're talking about level 1. I think you're talking about level 1.
Level 1.
We're level 2. Yeah. We're level 2. We got dropped and 1 person got killed by an orc.
Yeah, 4 orcs against 6 party members.
So let's put it in perspective. Level 2. When's the last time you were afraid of an orc?
Yeah, no, that never. Yeah,
never, right?
I mean, unless it was in numbers. Also,
4 orcs. It was 4
versus 6 players.
Versus 6 players. I mean, so my character is not as optimized for combat. I don't have a con mod and stuff all of his, other than Dex, all of his stats are in sort of mental stats.
Right.
So, I mean, he's a suboptimal character. He's got a 10 con, so he's not going to have as many hit points as a more optimized character might.
You're looking between 9 and 16.
Yeah, so that's pretty much.
Actually, since we're talking about that, right, and we're talking about, optimized characters, I'm going off notes here, guys, in case you can't tell, because, like I said, it was freaking 2 hours of video.
Yeah.
But one of the things he talks about is multi-classing, and he's really unhappy about the multi-classing. And specifically, he talks about who's going to multi-class into fighter, because it doesn't make sense. You don't get any armor as a wizard. Who the hell would be stupid enough? What moron is going to take fighter as their second level? Well, I did. Yeah, you know why? Because my wizard does some fighting. My fighter doesn't wizard. And that was my character concept, and I stuck with it. So I don't get heavy armor. I have to wait, and I'm going to take it as a feat, and so it's more expensive. I don't care.
And you got to wait beyond 4th level.
Well, that's the other thing. Multi-class in this edition is you have to make a serious choice because you can't just cherry pick. And if you do, you can do that. That's fine, but there's a price. There's a tax for that. Not in the previous editions where there was an XP penalty, but your stat bumps or possibilities to get feats is now tied to your level and your class.
Not your overall.
So, so you have to really think about it, because now, I took 1 level of fighter, I'll probably bum rush 4th level in wizard, so I can get either my feat or my stat bumps.
Yeah.
But you have to plan out your characters more carefully, and you, like you said, like in third edition, you take like 3 levels of everything, and you wouldn't think twice about it because you're like, oh, monk gets this at first and second level, and ranger gets this at first and second level, and 2 levels of fighter. There goes 2 bonus feats. Yeah, Pathfinder's the same way, where you can just rape the classes by rape them over and over again.
Oh my God.
Over and over again. It's brutal. It should be a crime, really. It's so disgusting the amount of it gets taken advantage of.
And don't forget, not only do you get those, the massive starting abilities, but you also get the first level saving throw bumps.
Oh yeah,
They're +2s at first level.
Yeah. Right, because you don't get the saving throws in here. You get specific things. It's way more balanced, okay? And it's a harder decision. Like, the overpowered thing to do is actually the single class.
Yeah.
And what they've kind of done, to, I guess, kind of help balance that multi-classing penalty, is you have a number of multi-class feat options. So if you want to have, say, I want to just be a dabbler in wizardry, you take the feat Magic Initiate at first if you're a human and you're playing the optional rules, or at 4th, and poof, you now have
some spellcasting
ability. And okay, you choose wizard, you could choose cleric, you could choose druid, or any spellcasting list. You get 2 cantrips and a first level spell that you can cast. Your wizard, your first level spell once a day. There's your dabble, and you're not sacrificing anything in your actual class tree.
There's a lot of options like that,
right,
where you can actually sprinkle in some things from other classes via feat selection. Like, I guess this is one of the reasons why I'm like a horrible Pathfinder player, because all my characters I built are unoptimized. I don't care. I just, I have a character concept.
And it's usually interesting and fun to play.
And it's exactly it. and that's what I want to do.
And I'm right there with you. So what do we want to move on to next?
We could talk about Dragonborn. We can talk about Kender.
Oh, Kender.
What about our favorite drow?
Oh, we could talk. Yeah. I actually agree with Spoony. Like, on this one, I would rather have seen a lot of other sub races than the drow, I guess. I mean,
he didn't need space in the core book.
Drow
didn't need. Drizzt didn't need.
They're going through the book and they're splashing in all these interesting characters, and you've got Brunar and you've got Tanis Half-Elven, and they put in their Drizzt. Now, of the Forgotten Realms characters, Drizzt is the one that's got a huge fan base that's out there, and we've talked that we've read the Drizzt novels, or Drizzt, or however you wish to pronounce it. You'll never get me off of the Drizzt name. Does the drow race deserve a mention in the player's handbook as a core race? I don't think so. But if you're going to stick with the RA novels being mentioned throughout...
Well, yeah, because they have Brunar and Regis in there.
Yeah, can you really go and not mention Drizzt, since he is the central character? RA might not have meant for that to happen when he originally wrote the Crystal Shard, but that's kind of how it wound up going. And so what do you think? Can you mention Brunar and Regis and not mention Drizzt?
Yes.
There you go. Yes. Now, actually, I agree you can, but I also agree that you can mention Drizzt without putting drow in the book. You could use them to talk about backgrounds. You could use it to talk about Ranger.
And that's where I would have gone. I would have put him in other places and not put drow in the player's handbook as a core race and say they're universally reviled
except for one dude.
Except for one guy.
Yeah. They could have did what they do with Dugar. The Dugar, they gave you a little sidebar. Yes, they're evil dwarves. They got these cool abilities. You want to be them? Don't worry about that right now.
Right.
That was, they could have did that. That'd have been perfect. Now, that being said, the drow entry, I like it. It's well done.
Absolutely.
It just didn't need to be there.
And it builds off of the same Tiefling model.
I'd rather seen the Dugar than the drow.
Hey, I played a Dugar in one of our games. It was actually the first evil game.
Once upon a time.
Many years ago. Almost 2 decades.
So I guess on that one, I give it to Spoony. Like, it's for the Dritz fanboys and whatever.
He would have been much more suited, that would have just been much better suited in the Monster Manual. Yeah, like just sidebar. Hey, you can play these.
Or a race splat book. As the terminology goes, being able to offer other races or other sub races as to say, all right, here you go.
But usually, I mean, the model's been in editions past. If things are reasonably playable, they would do a little sidebar of like, this is the adjustment for this thing. Because it's it doesn't take much to say that. Like,
well, then there's another horse we've probably beaten to death, but since Spoony mentioned it, I guess we got to mention it too. Dragonborn. We've talked about it. Like, I'm indifferent.
You know me. I'll battle wave. I'm.
Ted loves dragon boobs. I'm indifferent.
It's not about the dragon boobs.
It's totally about the dragon boobs. But so basically he was saying something to the effect that there's like absolutely no precedent in D&D, the history of D&D, for something like a Dragonborn. But that's just totally bullshit, because
it goes back pretty far.
The Dragonlance ones, the Draconians. Also, Dark Sun, Dragoth makes these Draconic-esque minions that are, I mean, they're pretty much evil, but you could give them, there's a precedent for them, and you could, like, do splinter, like, civilizations of them or whatever. So you could reskin them a little bit, and they would actually fit in Dark Sun reasonably well. Mm-hmm. Just totally different, twisted, but as is everything in Dark Sun. Yeah.
And then he gives the pass on the Tiefling.
Yeah.
Because he loves Planescape.
Yeah, but see, I don't really... I love Tieflings too, but not this one.
They shouldn't. Well,
I don't like what they did. I like them plain touched.
Tiefling should be something they should be super rare, because how often are you going to have some sort of peaceable interaction with a demon or a devil that results in an offspring and not just dead? Yeah,
but that's not what it is in this game.
I haven't read.
No, they did this whole thing. They ported it over from 4th edition, where. It was a bargain of a civilization made with demons or devils or whatever. So now this race of Tieflings is, and it's, before it used to be just like you had devil or demonic heritage in your background somewhere in the lineage. It's not that. It's a true race. And that's what I don't like. I like the other way.
That's dumb. That's dumb.
So that's...
Well, I mean... we rarely play in established worlds. So if we want to say, in our world, which we're currently referring to as Gryffindor, for lack of a better name, we can always say, yes, these are beings who are absolutely, have a bloodline somewhere down the line back to a, demon or devil.
And like we can flavor that out, but we're going off what's in here for now.
Right. Like I don't like there being a community of Tieflings.
Well, and that's essentially kind of what it is now. I like the rare snowflake character that it was the Tiefling. Now, one of the things that Spoony kind of railed against was the fact that like half orc and Dragonborn and Drow are listed with all the other races. Well, one of the interesting things about the races in here is they do list...
They have the breakdown of common and uncommon races.
Yeah, they list the common races, and it's everything that you would think it should be.
Yeah. You got human, elf, dwarf, and halfling.
Yep, but then when you get to Dragonborn, gnome, Tiefling, half-orc, half-elf, it does one of these sidebar things.
They made gnome uncommon? That's weird.
Yeah.
That's one
thing.
Well, that's not something I would expect. Gnomes usually.
It's not that they're maybe they're not common in the world. It's just they're uncommon as players.
I think they're saying there's less of them, but yeah, I guess it's uncommon as players. But they break it down the common races and uncommon races as far as playing, which it's nice that they put it in there. It means absolutely nothing because really it's just a turn of one page and then you're into them and
right.
But I don't know. They give it a nod and mention it, so which is fine. So that's races. I'm more or less. I'm pretty much happy with the races. I like the races.
Now, Spoony said that they didn't mention Kender. with all the mentions of Dragonlance in here, would you have liked them to use the term Kender?
Not as a halfling. I think Kenders were so. His reference was if you're going to mention halflings and you're going to use iconic halflings, why not a Kender? I feel like the Kenders were so far removed from halflings that
they're a very world-specific sub-race. Like, they're not anything that exists in any other world. So really, that's got to be like in a world book, campaign book.
They don't feel like halflings to me.
Yeah.
You know what's similar between a Kender and a halfling? They're both short.
Yeah.
So it's like. Yeah.
Beth, when my wife, when she actually played D&D, I mean, she loved the Kender. She actually ran campaigns, or not ran.
I guess I won't rail against my thing about Kenders then. People that like to play annoying characters in games often gravitate towards playing Kenders.
That is absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this was many years ago.
Yeah.
She's since stopped playing, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff that she used to like. She actually. Had done this Kender long enough in Dragonlance that the DM told people, you no longer have control of your inventory list. And she would totally just move stuff around and have fun just to test her abilities or have fun. So there'd be many times that someone would go to reach for an object and they'd be like, all right, is it there? And they'd have to check their list.
And that's pretty much Kender for you.
Yeah.
So like that, I thought that was kind of silly. Like you said, they're so specific. I personally feel like it almost feels like another race, not a sub race.
All right, so with that, and with them mentioning Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms in the book, there's a chance that those actual campaign settings will get released. So maybe the Kender will, appear there.
For those that want to. Go
annoy the rest of the
party. Yeah, exactly. If you want the rest of your table to hate you, you could have the option. So, one of the things he was talking about, how, like, he was surprised that Dragonlance got any sort of credence through it, through the PHB. Because he was like, there was only one campaign book, except for when you look at the fact that there was 30 novels released.
There was more than that.
I mean, the novelization of the world is so heavy that it's a big part of it.
And it was more than one book, dude. There was 4 box sets.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big Kryn person myself, but
it's a little before your time too.
Yeah.
So, I owned 2 or 3 box sets from Dragonlance.
I read the original trilogy. I didn't fall madly in love. Our ye old DM of the past, Steve. He fell in love with Raceland and availed us of many of the stories there.
I'm gonna move this out of the way just in case it's focusing on that. Who knows? It could be gauntlet focused the whole prior video. Yeah. So
Lens in the machine.
Yeah, exactly.
So skills. He feels like you don't get to pick your skills. I think he flip-flopped a little bit on this one, too.
Sure, as much as you didn't get to pick your skills in 4th Ed, if you were saying that was the perfect newbie game or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, he says his favorite game is Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And Pathfinder is, 3.5 adjusted, 3.75 for those that, want to call it that.
Keeping score. Yeah, those keeping score.
So you picked your skills, and there were some skills that were trained and some skills that, you could make untrained. And you had to play the game of spending all these skill points. Now, anybody can make any check, whether you're trained in it or not. So you still get to pick. All right, I'm going to take athletics, and I'm going to take knowledge.
Well, you pick the stuff you're good at.
You pick what you're going to excel, and the other stuff is just a stat roll.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that being said, all right, so there's 2 extremes here. One is, well, even though I don't have the tool skill, the Smith's tools, I'm going to build a breastplate. No, that's when your DM goes, no, you can't do that. There's nothing in your background. Maybe if you had
you don't have the equipment even to try.
Yeah. Maybe if there's something in your background. But some of this stuff requires some education on the players and the DM's part when it comes to the proficiency checks and the skill checks. You can pretty much try most things, but I would say there's some things you're just not gonna have a chance of doing because it doesn't make sense. Like this edition of the game really relies on players and the DMs
being rational. Yeah.
So the fighter who has no training in Arcana, sees this magical thing there and rolls a natural 20 on his D20. Sorry, you have no clue what it is because you have no exposure to it. Whoa. So how would you know?
Whoa, what if maybe there was like a sage that would tell of a legend in his culture, like that one happenstance? It's almost like, have you ever seen Slumdog Millionaire, where like this guy, like essentially able to, all these experiences in his life led him to this one moment, so he knew all the right answers.
Yes, if that is a possible situation. But if there is nothing in that character's history...
That natural 20 says that that's what happened. He rolled a natural 20.
I disagree.
You have a 5% chance of that circumstance happening.
Well, I'm actually in the middle on this one.
Yeah.
I say a natural 20 could tell you know something, but it can't tell you how to turn it on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But just like to know a story about this thing or a legend.
That's what it would be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
More specifically, it'd be more like trained skills, not something you've heard a story about, but actually knowing how to do something. Like, I don't care if you roll a natural 20. If you have never picked up a loot before, you're not going to pick it up and start,
playing a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen.
You roll a natural 20. You make sounds that don't sound bad.
Maybe you inadvertently play a couple of chords. Yeah. That's.
Yeah, can we find some common ground there?
Yeah. I mean, but that's skill checks versus using tool sets or whatever.
That's true. I mean, I guess there's a bit of a difference. I'm trying to think of what the actual proficiencies are. If there's any that I'd be like, absolutely not. But I don't think so. I mean,
you've got basically a whole bunch of artisan type stuff. You got gaming sets and you got musical instruments. And then you got thief stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thief stuff would be a little tricky too.
I guess pretty much all the tool stuff, and it falls under that category because everything else you can kind of luck through, or you might have heard something along the way.
Right.
Yeah, but then again, like that would flavor what you know. Like you're not going to know what the vampire's weakness is just because you rolled a 20. Like maybe
you can identify it as a vampire, maybe. Or that it's an undead creature that drinks blood.
Yeah, I think it would still be like vague stuff. You might not know that garlic, or you may not know to cut its head off and put it on the running water or whatever. Right. Like you might know steak. You need to steak its heart.
But you're thinking of like the beef steak as opposed to the piece of wood. So you put the cow.
Thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I put the steak in his heart.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
What's happening? Was this a vegetarian vampire? Is that why this was so bad?
Yeah. So you got that there, and like with that, it really is. It depends on what you like. If you want a skill heavy system and you want to you want to spend points here and there, then Pathfinder or 3.5, they're better games
for that.
For that thing. But if you don't care that much about the skills, I mean, if you don't care how good of an armorer you are, because it doesn't actually really come up in the game, it doesn't matter. Like the gradation is where I hear people complain about. Their main concern is the difference of their ability versus someone else's, and they're like, the only real difference is your level and your ability stat. Well, if you think about it, that's really what it comes down to in real life too. How long you've been doing it, and your natural aptitude.
How naturally inclined you are to do it.
Go figure. Yeah. And there isn't anything else.
No, there's no magic. Yeah.
If I have more skill points, it means I'm better trained in it. No, not really. That goes back to the experience part of it, really.
Right, you're just spending more time doing it. Yeah.
You're essentially your level is that bonus.
Yeah.
You're just not choosing to get to spend those skill points.
Well, pretty much. So there's that.
Yeah. All right. So we want to move on to the advantage disadvantage.
Oh my God! I can't believe they did that. I'm not even gonna play the game anymore.
Yeah.
Disadvantage. No, actually, I like it. It's a neat mechanic. It's fast, and you're the one that keeps pointing this out. And the more I think about it, I agree with you totally. Is the escalating scale makes all those +1s and +2s irrelevant.
Right. Well, so they're inconsequential. Like, whereas the rolling the advantage disadvantage mechanic, like that actually means something. Like somebody way smarter than us in math figured it out that it equates to like, I I think the difference of like a +4 to a +6, something like
Well,
that.
what do you think about Spoony's thoughts on the all or nothing?
What do you mean?
Elaborate.
Okay, so all right, so if you're flanking your enemy, right? You're fighting 2 or 3.
Oh yeah,
opponents.
5 to 1. He was talking about that.
Yeah, well, which that doesn't matter because in all the other games it's the same anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But say you have the advantage against your opponent because you're flanking him. You have an ally on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're standing on a table with the ally on the other side. Well, in Pathfinder or 3.5, that'd be a +1 for high ground
And +2 for flank.
+2 for flank.
So you're a net of a +3, which is still less than than having advantage. So there's that.
Yeah, so like that's his argument with the all or nothing. So I mean, like, I to me it doesn't bother me. I don't care. Maybe you guys out there, you love to add the +1s and +2s together.
I think there's something to be said with both systems for those people who like to number crunch and who like to essentially equate the accumulation of pluses to how good they are at something. And that kind of goes back to the skill points as well. It's like you have all these things that make you good at something. It puts you up on this higher pedestal. Whereas if it's just, well, I roll 2 dice. Well, if I suck at rolling dice, okay, it's going to increase my chances slightly that I might roll a little bit better. But they don't see it that way. They just like, okay, well, I don't have a plus here. I just have 2 dice.
Well, here's the thing. So the dice are so much more significant in this edition, versus you could build if your character was optimized to do a given task in third edition sort of mechanics because it was so plus heavy and this and that. Basically, you would be able to do, like the fighter probably hits on an 8+ or whatever. So about 70-75% of the time, you're going to be successful doing the thing that your character does.
Right.
Just out of sheer math. Like, my bonuses are like a +15 or whatever to do the said thing. So, like, now it's just like, no, every incremental roll on the die is like that much more meaningful because your bonuses are so, so nerfed now. So
things are nerfed, but at the same time, the other side of the coin is also lessened. Your DCs are lower, your armor classes are lower. I made a character, and it's like, dude, he's got an 11 AC. Holy crap! Scares the crap out of me. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, but I mean, So the D20. So instead of having all these numerical pluses added together, the D20 is the randomness. The focus is on the randomness of the die, really, as opposed to advantage and disadvantage are huge in that.
And, but that being said, too, it also has this other effect of with this de-escalation of bonuses and the DCs. What happens is we get to use our monsters longer.
Right?
As a DM,
they get much more interesting.
This is fun, we're talking about being challenged by orcs at 2nd level, and orcs actually will be valid up to like 10th level. I mean, in numbers, but they can still hit you. They can still do damage. It still means something. It's not like in 3rd edition where you would just cut through them in the swath and really it was more annoying.
They just slow you down from getting to the big bad or whatever. Like they buy the spellcaster rounds while he does like the bad guy spellcaster. They buy him rounds or whatever.
But they still do that. But they can actually hurt you in the meantime.
And Spoony was also talking about the potential for abuse of the advantage. Like basically rules lawyering into advantage.
Right.
Rules lawyers are going to rules lawyer no matter the edition. They'll find the grains of things that they can do, or if they're munchkinning, they'll build the optimized character to take advantage of a given rule.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I played a Google Hangout game and we had one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to call him out by name or anything in case he watches this, but the problem was he was going by the alpha rules, which was the rules that were released right before actually the PHP came out.
Of it.
So he got a bunch of the rules wrong.
Because they had changed from the previous.
If going forward, like that DM told him, was like, yo, you can't quote the rules anymore because you don't quite have them right.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things he was saying, he gave this instance. He was like, all right, my character before the fight begins is going to take a sip of wine, have that in his mouth or whatever. Take a
so
pull of wine.
Spit it in the face.
Spit it in the face of the guy he's squaring off. Wouldn't that give me an advantage? Absolutely, for one attack, because he's only going to be able to shoot out one significant gallon of wine into somebody's face. All right, you did something that was cool. If you're playing a swashbuckler character, takes a chug of wine, like a Porthos character from the Three Musketeers, spits a gob of wine into somebody's face, and like the guy's like blinded for that round. Why not? That's cool. It's thematic. Sure, you can have advantage for that. That was badass. One attack. So what? Is that really going to alter the game? Change it? No. Move on. It's not really that big of a deal.
So
I agree.
With that, right, we have map or no map, right? He kept flipping back and forth on this one. And you know what? And actually, like, even though 5th edition is kind of geared towards theater of mind, I think in the DMG we're going to see a lot of stuff where it brings back the rules for that, or maybe it's in a splat book. Which, again, that's a hot button for certain people where they're angry. Oh my God, they're going to start adding splat books in or whatever. I like options. I want a lot of options in my game. I like the fact that this game is designed in a way that you can easily add and take away options.
Right. You can wrench on it. And,
you can wrench on it. And, we actually were using maps before it was cool to use the maps. Gamers everywhere always have. Because... again, going back to that one DM, he was always that DM that would hit the wizard in the back with an ogre.
Right.
And you're like, how did he get to him?
He just did.
Yeah, he just did. So, before we had minis, we had dice.
Yeah.
The D4s were the characters, and the D6s were the enemy, and we had different size D6s in case we had big enemies.
Right, or somebody dropped in a large spell, or whatever.
Yeah, so we had...
Oh man, I didn't even remember that stuff. Wow.
Yeah. So we had a piece of clear plastic, and I took a square, and I drew the lines on it with a Sharpie, and we used that thing forever.
You still have that?
Nah, that's history by now.
Yeah.
So the theater of the mind, use it or don't use it. Like, it's an option in the game now, and I like it. I like the way what they did was, in 4th edition, you had to use it. It was like impossible to play without it.
There was no good.
I mean, you could, but it would really make a lot of the abilities for the different
pushing back, 3
classes.
squares. Well, what does that mean?
It basically leads to just. I like the grid in general for that reason. Like, I don't want arbitrary calls. Like, I don't want them. Combat is like, especially in 5th edition, like the lethality of it. It's pretty life and death. I don't want my character's life hanging on somebody's arbitrary decision of what they think should happen.
What we used to do before I started playing with you guys?
What was that?
Before the fight would break out, the DM would grab a piece of paper like this, and he would draw X's and circles, almost like a football play, and go, okay, you guys are here, they're there, what are you doing? Because since the dawn of time... Well, since gaming started anyway with RPGs.
I'm imagining cavemen with like rocks.
Yeah. You had to figure this stuff out and make it, or if you didn't, we had that over and hitting the character in the back.
Yep.
Somehow with a sneak attack. Even though he's behind a line of warriors or whatever. But so map or no map, like I don't even know what his point was on that, to be honest with you. I just know he bitched about it. He did actually a lot of bitching in these videos.
He did.
And name calling. I've never been called a pussy so many times in my life.
Yeah. It's like,
by a skinny guy at that.
So do we want to go onto the magic?
We could, or we could talk about death saving throws.
Well, I mean, we already kind of covered a little bit of the lethality of it.
Well, yeah, we did cover that, but and we talked about his view a little bit, but he made a very strong point in case about the fact that it's just a straight die roll. Why does Caramon have the same chance of failing as Raistlin? Right?
Right.
But so I would say, but why is it con and not wisdom? At a certain point you're bleeding out on the ground. Maybe it's not how fit you are, but your desire to live.
Right.
So it could be willpower. Like, you can make the argument for either one of those stats, I think. So I'm completely okay with the arbitrary drop of a die.
Well, yeah, and your con isn't. Yeah, your con doesn't factor in at all. It's just it's a straight roll.
You're dying.
Maybe your race has something to do with it. Like, I don't know if half orcs get something to help them resist dying. I don't know.
No, they do actually, but not once they're dying.
Yeah, once they're dying,
they're boned. Yeah. The half orc has an awesome racial ability that if they are dropped to 0 but are not outright killed, once a day they can just drop to 1 instead.
Drop to 1 hit point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they get to
stay on their feet.
They basically get the Hulk Hogan, when he hulks out.
Yeah, pretty much for one time, and then it's like, oh, don't do that again, please. Whatever you do.
Yeah.
So like, I think he was way off on that in the sense that once you're making those saving throws versus death, you're bleeding out. Yeah. You've actually been mortally wounded.
Well, 5th edition really has changed the concept of hit points. In previous editions, especially, as DMs, we've described, you take a glancing blow here, you take a bruising shot there. But 5th edition has described hit points as your endurance of battle. You're tired out, and you're dodging the strikes, or you're barely turning them away, but you're not actually being injured.
It's almost representing fatigue more so than anything else.
When you're actually injured or when you're at 0, someone has landed a fatal strike upon your body, and you are, as you said, bleeding out. Yeah. You are close to death. And at that point in time, it doesn't matter whether it's someone who has barreled through Caramon's defenses and he's got an axe blade stuck in his chest, or whether it's, Raceland who's been barely cut by a dagger. It doesn't matter how you look at it. They both have lifeblood that's being poured onto the ground.
Yeah.
That works for me. But yeah.
Well, the thing that they got is those extra hit points, and that represents
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It took them longer to get to that point.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm completely okay with the system that they have.
I'm kind of terrified of it.
If it was any more lethal, we'd have more characters dying.
Hey, on the plus side, you're GMing the game, so you don't have a character that can get dropped.
I'm GMing this game,
yeah.
So there was a lot of bitching about stat array point buys and
versus roll. Well, you know what?
Even in his own Pathfinder game.
Here's the thing.
Actually, the dice rolling craziness that I have, I actually went and decided to experiment. And this was done before I even saw the Spoony video. I'm like, these stats seem, bizarre. There's a nice spread.
It's a net +5, right?
It's a net +5, and I sat there and I rolled, a bunch of different sets just to see what it would look like. My first set, I rolled exactly that: 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. I was freaked out at first, and then I rolled a bunch more just to see what it was. And there were some that the total mod was lower, some the total mod was higher, but it averaged out to exactly a +5.
I personally don't care what people use. I just feel that everybody at the table should use the same system.
Right. However it's done. And you know what? If you want everybody to roll, then just tell everybody they're going to roll their characters. There you go.
Yeah, and you'll have varied stats, and it'll be whatever. And actually, it doesn't matter in this edition. You want to know why? Because you can have straight 8s and play anything.
That's right.
In previous editions...
You can't play a multi-class character.
Well, yeah, you cannot be a multi-class character because there are stat requirements for that. But for everything else, there's no requirements, and you may not be as good as doing something, but it doesn't affect the level of spell you can cast. If you're a caster.
It wouldn't affect the armors you could wear.
Well, yeah. But my point is, it doesn't affect what class you can play.
Right.
Yeah. Unless you want to play more than one.
Right, and there's that.
And if you're
a dwarf, I'm barely any good at doing
if you're a dwarf, you can still wear heavy armor and have any strength because you're a dwarf, and dwarfs are just superior.
Right. Dwarven elitism there.
Hey, a little bit. I'm fond of the stout folk. So, with that, I don't really care. We've played in the beginning. We've rolled 3-6 straight down.
Oh, yeah?
We've done that, so it's like, I don't feel like I was any tougher for doing it, to be honest with you.
My gamer penis isn't any larger that I can flop onto the table.
Well, we look at it, as you said, as long as you're using the same set of rules, it doesn't really matter all that much. And I've had characters that have had supreme stats that still get their asses kicked, and I've had characters with pretty crummy stats that I've played for long campaigns. So realistically, the stats are only a part of it. And on top of that, the fact that the system is designed to cap you out at 20 it's kind of almost good to start off lower, so you've got somewhere to go.
Right.
It's like,
although taking feats is pretty attractive at that point too.
True, but I mean, it's like, all right, I start off with a 15 strength. It's like, all right, my goal is to get that guy to a 20.
Yeah.
But if you start off with an 18, it's like, I got to reach 4th level. I got 20.
Yeah.
All right, mission accomplished.
Next. Woo! So I got on my list multi-class and we talked to, and I am that idiot, sir, because I was the wizard with the multi-classing. We talked about why you don't want a multi-class.
All right.
Magic.
Well, here's one of the things he talks about: the microtransactions and the modular system of 5th edition. Doesn't like it.
Microtransactions? You mean like +1s rampant +1s everywhere? Is that
No. Apparently, it's a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I guess he's talking about the background, the race, sub-race, and the class. It is the only thing because I guess and the feat component. I don't know even what he meant, but I jotted it down.
Well, I mean, so stat bonuses are a lot more substantial in this edition. Like they mean a lot more. Like a +2 is it's giving a single modifier, +1 modifier to something is pretty substantial. Like the modifier and not
The bonus.
stat.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like that in this edition, where the highest proficiency bonus you're going to get is a +6. A +1 is actually substantial. So
It's a 6th of your max.
in an edition like say 3rd, where your bonus, your 20th level, and you get a +20 to attack and so on and so on. A +1 doesn't really mean that much, but in an edition where you're on a much smaller arc, it's not micro at all.
Yeah,
it's super macro.
Macro, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that too, and this isn't something Spoony said, but I've seen other people. Their complaint is about the armor and it's low, and the way they did the armor class system in general, and it comes back to that the numbers scale different in this edition.
Right. Exactly.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? It's a +8 in 3rd edition, and it's a +8 in 5th edition. Well, that +8 in 5th edition means a whole lot more.
Yeah, a hell of a lot more. It's like, you damn well shouldn't your dex bonus to
and in the same sentence, in the same sentence, they're complaining, half plate's medium armor, and then I forget which and splint mail's heavy armor. Well, it
does it matter?
For one, does it matter, and two, it's not about the weight of the armor. It's about how wearable it is.
The construction of it, yeah.
The wearable. So, there's a lot of nitpicky stuff like that I've seen people throw around there. Not necessarily Spoony in that one.
Yeah.
He didn't mention the armor. He probably didn't even read that section anyway. So.
Yeah, right.
So what's next on your list?
Oh, he complained that in this edition, unlike Pathfinder and 4th, you don't get something every level.
Yeah, that's totally wrong.
I know, if you look at any of the classes, right? You go to the book, and I don't know. Should I do the debate back and forth whether I'm going to go to the book or not?
I don't know. Am I going to page to the book?
If I look, I'm looking at Fighter right here. I don't see a single level that it doesn't list something you don't get. Spellcasters, it's kind of like that a little bit.
But they get new spells every level.
So usually if they have a dead level for something,
they're getting
here's the board. No, it's not even that they're getting a spell. They're getting the next spell level.
Right, yeah.
So they're getting the more powerful spell.
Right.
So...
And that was that way in 3rd as well.
Yeah.
No, 3rd you had dead levels.
Completely dead levels.
Absolutely dead levels.
Pathfinder did more for that.
Yeah, Pathfinder took a lot of that out.
Path and 4th had things where you're pretty much getting something just about every level.
4th you're always getting the ability to choose new abilities.
Yeah.
Well, and the deadest levels are actually your stats, right? Where you get a +1 and 2 different stats, or you can take a feat.
Right.
But even that, to that, that's almost like a pinnacle. They're some of the coolest things you can get now. If you can trade, you either take the stats, which, as we said, means more, because a +2 means you can raise up a modifier,
right?
Or you can get a feat. And we freaking love the feats.
Oh yeah,
feat design. Yeah, they're a lot more substantial.
I can't wait till we get more. So that brings us to magic.
All right.
Magic made Spoony very angry.
This is the part that I couldn't understand the logic pattern. All right, now let's look at what he says specifically in his video. 4th edition is a perfect game. Even though he qualifies it as it is, he says it's a perfect game.
For what it is.
For what it is. He says Pathfinder is his favorite game.
Yes.
He says he can't stand cantrips.
Which are a big part of early levels, especially.
Which in 5th edition, if you have access to a cantrip, you can cast it at will. And it doesn't matter what it does. But you can, poor will. Yeah. You can cast it as many times as you want. And, yes, Firebolt or Flamebolt or whatever one it is, it does a die 10 point of damage.
But here's the other one that really pissed him off. It's the poison one.
Acid Splash?
No, the poison spray.
I want to look at that.
Poison spray, okay. Does a D12 damage automatically
but they get a saving.
But they can get a
save for half.
So,
but here's the thing, right? And he dismissed this, right? And this really shows how his lack of understanding of 5th edition and how lethal it is. You have to get within 10 foot of someone to hit them with that.
Yeah.
One target, auto hit, die 12, save for half.
Right, so the thing is, on all the spellcasting, lower level spellcasting, the dice are increased, so on the surface they look more powerful. The DCs for saving throws are so much lower that most of the time they have about a 50% chance, maybe slightly better if that's their primary stat. Right. Say a burly creature like an orc is going to make a con save more often than not.
Let's compare it to a fighter.
Yeah.
You're a fighter. What weapon do you use? Just pick one.
Let's just say a two-hander one, like a greatsword.
Okay, so great. 2 die 6, die 12. So okay.
Plus strength mod.
The wizard doesn't get the plus strength mod.
Right, exactly. So
and he's got a die 6 for hit points plus his con.
And because he's got to get there. Now, going back to what I said, he loves 4th edition. Now, 4th edition, I played an Eladrin wizard. And right here, I have the stat card for his at-will ability. Scorching Burst. One area burst 1 within 10 squares. So I'm 25 feet away.
An area of effect.
I can hit 9 people with that ability.
It's like a 10th level spell, right?
No, this was a level 1 power, because I was a 3rd level character.
So
oh my God.
What is that an at-will encounter?
This is at-will power.
What's the damage die? What's the damage die?
Damage die is D6 plus intelligence modifier. At 21st level, I can increase it to 2 die 6.
All right, so a D6, what was your intelligence mod?
4.
All right, so it's D6 plus 4.
5 to 10.
So 5 to 10 damage.
But you can save for half?
Yes. No, it was attack versus reflex, no saves.
So, all right, so they don't get a saving throw. You can hit multiple targets, and your damage output is actually
better.
On average, going to be better because I have to roll a 12,
and it's at
I have to roll a 12.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm trying to do a Spoony thing. Great. Like he did this outburst about
so
fucking fantastic.
He complained about the cantrips, all these things you use at will. Didn't really mention much about their scalability because maybe he didn't read that far, or didn't reference it enough. But the cantrips get stronger. When you're high level, was it 16 to 20, something like that? Your cantrips are doing 5d10.
Yeah, and the fact that. So, 4th edition, you have your at-will powers, which that didn't change. And then if his preferred game being Pathfinder, with the fact that the things you could do, you had these attack abilities, whether it's throwing a glob of acid as a conjurer, whatever your sorcerer bloodline gave you. So you could use those a number of times a day.
But you also got cantrips. You got 0th level spells.
You got some cantrips. They weren't as attacky.
Absolutely not. They were like Ray of Frost that were doing D3.
D3. But what I'm saying is, so those abilities that you got, which were often touch abilities, or you could get the Evoker got a sort of micro magic missile, a single missile type of deal. But those were 3 times a day plus your power stat.
Right.
So, if you have a 4 or a 5 modifier to your power stat, that means you're using this thing, up to 8 times a day if you have a 20 in that stat. Which isn't
there was a lot of times, if say that was your one of your favorite classes, Like, it would bump those numbers even higher.
Well, yeah, you could take that to get the extra attack with it. But, like 8 times a day with, like, the fact that you have
in addition to all your other spells.
Right, exactly. So, like, really, and then you could resort to attacking with cantrips. So, with cantrips. So, really, the Pathfinder Wizard isn't that much different from even the 4th edition.
I would honestly, I would take the Pathfinder Wizard over
the 5e Wizard?
The 5e Wizard any day of the week.
Well, I mean, as far as them being more powerful, yeah.
They're so much more powerful. I mean, yeah, you got your cantrips are better in 5e.
Yeah.
But you can't layer spells in 5e like you did in the previous edition.
Yeah, you can't stack. Yeah. And not only that, too, what was the point I was going to... Oh, okay, so a Specialist Wizard in Pathfinder, I think they're casting, like, 3 to 4 first level spells, something like that, 3 or 4. In this edition, 5e, you get 2 first level casting.
They go fast, man.
yeah. You want to hold on to those until like the most dire straits. I mean, technically you can get 1 back, so you can get.
It harkens to what he had actually said early on. Is it
1 spell a day?
Is it bringing back the old school with a little bit of a new feel? And that's something that Spoony said, and that's kind of what we've thought. It's got the best of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and there's blaring road signs, in my opinion, as to, hey, this thing here comes from this specific edition.
Absolutely.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so he was talking about like being snarky about the success of it, but I totally think it managed to have an old school feel with like what I would call as a streamlining of the rule set. Is really what happens. Like, instead of having you look at your old 2nd edition D&D books, tables on every 3rd page, just tables everywhere. I need to know this. Well, where do I find the table to do that? Where's my saving throws? My saves versus
old school games, man. They love the tables.
Love the tables. Yeah.
If you look at just the stat charts.
Yeah.
You had these astronomical, tables that you had to go off of, Benbar's lift gates and Thaco. Well, I mean, Thaco was whatever, but I mean, like, just the different things on your.
There was a Thaco table.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I was saying with stats, every single stat had its chart for all of these different things, and this kind of stems back to some of the extra geek in me that I haven't talked about. When I was in college and learning computer programming, my final project was a random stat generator for 2nd edition that printed out all of that information.
So like 5 pages of tables.
So all of that stuff had to be coded and put in there. Okay, well, if your stat is this, your Benbar's lift gates is this, your number of languages is this, your save versus such and such is that.
Ted's programming teacher was saying, "Man, this guy needs a life." These are more tables and numbers than I even want to say.
It was oh god, just thinking about it gives me a headache.
Well, here's what I want to say about that. The old school versus new school and everything we've said about it, it's rolled all these things in from all the editions, and that's what I like about it. It's an
amalgamation.
That's the word.
Sure.
Of all the editions, of all the stuff that I actually liked. It's got the lethality of 1st edition.
Or lethality.
That too.
Yeah,
it's got it's got that 2nd edition AD&D feel, but then the customization and the more sensible rules from 3rd and 4th edition.
You're not being as limited as 2nd edition would do to you, because some of that stuff was like ridiculous.
Everything was literally the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just talking from 2nd edition, the arbitrary limitations that were put on characters.
Oh yeah, like the racial
level limits.
Yeah.
Like, my elven fighter it can't go beyond 7th level.
And the human couldn't multi-class.
Right. Well, but the human...
They had dual class.
Yeah.
Well,
and along the same lines, though, you don't have the paladin and the ranger being put up on these pedestals because they're not being compared to, say, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and these historical figures, like Sir Gawain and whatnot. So you didn't have these. Well, you don't have a 16 charisma, you can't play this, or you don't have a 15 dex, you can't play this ranger. I don't remember the exact stat requirements, but rangers and paladins.
Dude, paladins, you needed a 17 in your charisma.
Yeah,
a 17 charisma.
You had to put your best stat in charisma if you wanted to be a paladin.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he had some other stat requirements, but the 17 charisma.
Yeah, it was rough
there was
to play both of them.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit ridiculous, and they kind of removed it, with the later editions, and now it's anything with spellcasting, you've gone even further. You don't even need, that 14 intelligence to cast that 4th level spell. It's like, all right, I'm done.
No, you're just a wizard. You're just not good at it.
So
I like that. So what? You know what? So you're the DC's
you're a middling wizard.
The DC's an 8 with all your bonuses added in.
So you suck.
They get half damage all the time. But you get to play. You get to have fun with it. Okay. I think we pretty much cover
the bases.
The bases. Now let's wrap this up with. First of all, I'm going to put a link.
Last of all,
I'm going to put a link to Spoony's videos. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. And watch his stuff anyway.
By and large, he's entertaining. Yeah, exactly.
We like him.
Yeah, we're not trying to attack Spoony. We like the guy. We like his videos.
Squirt Gun Wars, Leaping Wizards.
Spoony's Jihad. Spoony's Jihad is an awesome video.
Yeah, I'd like it if you stat it, they will.
There is no fucking beating Cthulhu.
Yeah. Don't
fuck with the Lady of Pain.
Yeah. Basically, we should link to some of his other videos that we love. Like, they're super entertaining. It's just on this one, like,
we think
you can't reject something out of hand that you haven't tried.
And I'll put that offer out again. Go ahead and contact us, Spoony. If you want to play 5th edition, we can set up an online game. We don't know where you're located. If you're around the corner, come on over.
I think he's in Illinois.
But we can set up an online game and we'll play 5th, with you, and maybe we'll be able to change your mind. And that's what this is about. We want to change your mind.
No, I don't want to change your mind.
I do.
He wants to. I don't give a fuck what you people play. I like this game. Play the game that makes you happy. But my point is, if you're going to do a review, freaking read the book.
Read it and play it.
And play it.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to play it, at least read it.
Yeah,
I mean, when he went off on the Paladin descriptions, it's like, okay, if you would have flipped back 5 pages, you would have seen exactly what you pointed out in another book.
Right. Yeah.
So that was really my primary issue. You don't have to like 5th edition. You don't have to play it.
Just being like such a vitriolic dick. You know, like that to me, like, even if I wasn't on the 5e side of the fence of enjoying it, like, I think that would grate on me just like as a person. Like, it's just like,
well, yeah. I mean, if you read the comments, a lot of people are like, "Oh, all you did was insult people," and well, whatever. Look, screw those people, because if you're going to a Spoony video, that's what you get.
Yeah.
That's kind of his thing. That's his stick, and I appreciate that. I get a laugh out of it. He likes to call people whiny pussies and stuff like that, and make fun of them. It's just that in this case, when you're referring to the rules, it was very arbitrary, and it's damaging to the hobby to do that kind of a review
on the thing.
It was very irresponsible.
Yeah.
Because his opinion matters.
He's got a wide reach. He does, certainly.
Spoonie's a big deal. A lot of people follow him.
A lot.
And it would be different if he was just giving his opinion, on something that was well researched and he actually tried. But that's not really, in my opinion, that's not what happened. There was a lot of contradiction in what he said. If you're familiar with this game and you watch those videos, you know that he didn't even really read the book that well.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like forced out there. Whatever, though. Look, go check it out. It's up to you to have your own opinion. Tell us what you feel, how you feel about 5th edition. Love it, hate it. You're going to keep playing Pathfinder. You hate all D&D games. It doesn't matter. Whatever you like to play.
People that are like, they felt like they've graduated out of playing D&D and play other RPGs for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. The important thing to us is the hobby of tabletop keep going. That's what we really care about.
Play what you like.
Yeah.
Play what's fun. With that, you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all those good places, even nerdarchy.com.
Instagram.
Yeah. Well, pretty much all over social media. You look for Nerdarchy, you're going to find us.
Like, comment, subscribe. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share?
That's right. Keep sharing is caring.
That's it. So with that, my friends,
until next time, stay nerdy.